Hello, welcome back to Food for Life, where the food isn't just for the belly. My name is Jennifer Scheffler, and today's topic is forgiveness. But first, let's do some housekeeping. I'm not a professional doctor or a counselor or a psychologist. I'm a profession in my own life and seek to give you knowledge of the lessons that I've learned. So it will be based on opinions and experiences through my life. And that would mean I may make a mistake, misquote, maybe mispronounce things, but that's part of the fun of the videos. So, with that, we're going to be dive right into forgiveness. Now, imagine the feeling of your best friend not forgiving you. It's crushing when that happens. I just got done doing a friendship video not too long ago, and I talked about how I told my friend to F off, and I didn't want to speak to her again because she told me that my boyfriend at the time was a loser, and I was totally offended by that. And so I broke off a friendship that we had. Well, at the time, I was 18, so we'd been friends since I was 12. So, I mean, after a few years, I was offended by what she said and broke it off. But then I would say a few months to a year later, I realized that she was right. And then I came to her and I'm like, I'm so sorry that I said that to you. And she says, I forgive you. And we picked up like day never passed. So that was really revealing to me. For one, is the fact that she was just so eager to forgive me after I treated her like garbage. And two, I felt like $1,000,000. And I was thankful that she accepted my friendship back and she didn't have to. She didn't, she totally could have written me off but she didn't. She chose to forgive me, and so that was really, really cool. And so I have a quote, which is really, really, it says something. It speaks volumes. That's what I was looking for. Not forgiving someone is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's exactly what I was doing most of my life. I just didn't realize it at the time because I was so traumatized, and I had just had so many messages in my head that was keeping me from being forgiving. But, it was always somebody else's fault why I was in misery, and not forgiving people had really made me become bitter and took it out on people. And I was just upset and just not a good person to be around. I had held on to all the stuff in my past that people have done to me, and it was literally killing me. So I was drinking the poison by not forgiving people. And then I went into recovery and I learned a whole new level of what forgiveness really is. And obviously it's really forgiving others is about them, not about you. And so if you can have it in your heart to forgive somebody of things that they've done in the past, um, because we're human, then we're already halfway there with forgiving other people to have hurt us in the past. And so I'd like to share a story about a real good example of how I forgave somebody who didn't deserve forgiveness. So, or at least I thought that. So, at the time I was married, my son was about 3 years old, and my daughter was, I'd say 12. I think that's right. No, I know my math is wrong, but we don't care about that. So I was married, and I get a phone call from a lady saying that my husband wants to shoot me. And then I go from panic mode to prayer mode, and I'm like, God, I need out of this relationship. And he helped me out. And then a few years later, my son's older, and I'm having trouble with visitation. There's a problem that's not getting taken care of. And I just finally said, like, out of the blue, I just changed my demeanor towards my husband, who I had left at that time. I said, look, I don't hate you. I forgive you. I just don't like what you're doing to our son. It needs to stop. So after that conversation, we never heard from the guy again. And I tried contacting him because it was bizarre to not hear from him. He finally said, I don't want to talk to you guys. Just leave me alone. So I left him alone. And then years go by. So after the years go by, I go into recovery and I'm learning about forgiveness. And I finally say one day out of the blue, God, you know what? I'm okay with the fact that my husband doesn't want to divorce me. I don't care anymore. I forgive him. I forgive the fact of that just wasn't, our marriage just wasn't what it was supposed to be. I was lying to myself and to you, and I want to be released of feeling like it was my fault, and I just want to give it to you. Um, I forgive, and I don't care anymore. I'm not going to let it destroy and run my life anymore, is what the intention of telling God why I wanted to let go of my husband. And then 2 years later, he dies. And COVID hits, and I'm asked to bury him. I'm the next of kin. I'm shocked. I have to bury a guy who wanted to shoot me. And that was the first thing I thought, like, how am I going to do this? So luckily, I had gone through already some of my recovery and I was able to let go of it. I just didn't know what I was going to say at the funeral. I mean, can you imagine had I not forgiven him, the funeral would have been all about me. It would have been he did this or he did that. I mean, I can't imagine what the funeral would be like, but I don't think it would have been very pleasant had I not gone in there with a forgiveness heart. So I like to say that was a breakthrough for me to be able to forgive him and think about his life. And that's what I was doing when I went to go bury him. I thought about his life. It wasn't about me. And then I just started sobbing and sobbing. And I'm like, I can't do this eulogy. I can't stop crying. And so the family member who was helping me through the process jumps in and says, let me do this for you. And I'm like, thank you. That was a godsend. She was a blessing the entire time. So she gives the eulogy and my son is crying and he's the first one to put dirt on his dad. And then I offer the rest of the family members to do that. None of the family members were talking to me. They all but like 4 people had nothing to do with me. They had set their judgments on me and left it at that. But the crying for me, I didn't realize until after the funeral when my emotions were a little bit less raw. I realized why I was crying. I was crying because my son didn't have a dad. My son lost a potential of having a father in his life. And my husband didn't have the chance to have Jesus in his life. And I think that would have been a big change in my husband's life had he allowed Jesus to see him and recognize who Jesus is, a man with grace who forgives us, who doesn't want us to hold on to shame and guilt. And that's what my husband had done generation after generation after generation. He held on to guilt and shame and blamed everybody and could not forgive anybody who hurt him in his life. And I could see his life like that as an unforgiver. And I can see what life is like as a forgiver. He was trapped as an unforgiver, and I was freed because I forgave him. And that was a blessing to be able to forgive him before he died so that I can bury him in peace. So let's see what Jesus had to say about forgiveness, and I chose two scriptures that are really good, and I mean, and we know them quite well. One of them is Ephesians 4:32. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God Christ has forgiven you. God does forgive you. That's the whole point of Jesus coming, living as a person. He understands pain. He understands um, everything that we experience. Okay, I could spend all day explaining every one of those, but we don't need to. He understood it, and he understood what lack of forgiveness was. And he was killed on the cross for that. And he knew he was going to be killed. So he knew he had a prophecy from his father to let's end this guilt and shame and how we people live the way, the religious ways. And when he died for us, grace was born. And it's a reminder that God knows what we're going through and he forgives us. And I mean, if he is still around, even from the beginning of time to 2023, then clearly he's a forgiver. And so he wants to remind us that we are to forgive others too, because he died for us so that he could forgive us. And the rest is history. The second one I chose was Matthew 18:21-22. Then Peter came and said to him, Lord, if another member of the church sins against me, how often should I forgive? As many as 7 times? Jesus said to him, not 7 times, but I tell you, 77 times. Well, he doesn't really mean 77 times. What he's saying is he wants you to forgive over and over and over. No matter how many times people hurt you, you've got to forgive them for your sake, not for their sake. Because you can't hold on to something of somebody else's doing. It's not going to work for you. So you must try to forgive. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you got to have them in your life. If they're going to continue to purposely hurt you, then you need to forgive them, but maybe not put them in your life anymore. Forgiving other people releases you from the issues. It releases you as the guilty party. And so, yeah, that's in a nutshell. Forgiving my husband freed me, and his lack of forgiveness tied him down, and his demise was really based on knowledge that he didn't know about, which was Jesus. And it's really sad to me that he didn't get to know him in that way. And I'm thankful that I did, because it gave me a chance to be freed by forgiving people who hurt me in the past. And that allows me to live. It allowed me to bury my husband without any ill feelings. Instead, I cried from compassion to him because of the life he led. He felt trapped. He didn't know how to get out. And of course, that's what he wanted to do, was shoot me. But he would have realized if that had happened, he would have been in a bigger mess. He just wasn't thinking clearly because he wasn't focusing his life with Jesus. And that's what I hope that you will do, that you will find a space for Jesus in your life so that he can help you forgive people who have hurt you. And that's when you will finally feel free and you will find hope. And so with that, we're going to have a momentum moment, a motivational moment. Why I cannot say that, I don't know. In the meantime, click like and subscribe. Maybe tag a friend who you think may get some knowledge from this. Yeah, okay, so I chose Isaiah 12:2. Surely God is my salvation. I will trust. I will not be afraid, for the Lord God is my strength, my shield. He has become my salvation. And really, that's what he did for me. He became my shield when I asked him to help me out of the marriage when I found out he was going to shoot me. Okay, that was his salvation. Or no, that was, um, yeah, I will not be afraid for the Lord, as he is my strength and my shield. So now he's, because I trust him and I believe in him and I understand Jesus's grace, that allows me to have salvation in his eyes. And that's what he wants for all of us. He doesn't want us to hold on to guilt and unforgiveness and shame and everything that comes with that. He wants us to be freed and be happy and live a good long life. And the only way to do that is by asking him, Jesus, in your life. So with that, I hope you have a peaceful week. I hope you enjoyed this segment, and tag a friend who might need a little bit of advice. That's how you can find peace in your heart, is forgiveness. Well, take care, and thanks for joining me, and we will see you next time.